All right, folks, welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I am your host, Brian Call, and I am joined by my brother, the Gritty Broman. Brent, say hi to the people.
Hi, people.
Today's episode is all about elk hunting with some legends. We got Corey Jacobsen, Ryan Carter, Ryan Lampers, and Jason Phelps. We did this podcast live at the Western Hunt Expo. We get into hunting strategy because each of these guys hunts a little bit different, have different backgrounds, different personalities, different techniques, all elk killing dudes who they're legends. I love these guys, all good friends. We talk about raking. It's very interesting to hear how some don't use it at all, and some of those dudes do it solely. We talk about glunking, same situation.
I don't like that word.
Glunking?
Glunking.
I was surprised. The one person who uses it often is Corey Jacobsen. And I know because I hunted with Corey and I was like, whoa. And it was cool. So to learn more about that.
Yes, I was editing that podcast or that little film. And then all of a sudden, Corey just, I'm not even going to try to pretend to glunk. Yeah. But I was like, what is this sound?
Oh, dude, it was like a secret weapon. The bulls got super stoked when he did that a couple of times. So awesome podcast with those guys. Elk hunting timing. They all have different season dates they kind of hit and prefer. Some prefer the deep rut. Some, like Ryan, prefer early season. Lampers as well. Carter and Lampers. I should use their last names. Good podcast. So before we get into that, we have some announcements, some deals and discounts to tell you about. Really cool. We have some Valkyrie broadheads that we're giving away. A 3-pack of your choice. Brent Hahn donated them to the show to give to you people. All you got to do to win the broadheads is be entered to win the broadheads is leave a comment on our recent episode with Brent Hahn, which was episode 434.
You were in the 400s. Thank you. 434. Valkyrie Archery, Brent Hahn at the Western Hunt Expo is the title.
Yep. Go to briancall.com, go to podcasts, go to episode 434 on our YouTube channel. Leave a comment down below on the YouTube video, and you will be entered to win. We'll announce that winner on Friday,
March 8th.
We also are giving away some Mountain Ops Ignite if you leave a comment on this video. Again, go to briancall.com podcasts. You can find all our shows there. Click on the link to the podcast and leave a comment below.
And if you want to win a Yeti Rambler, go to our last episode 420.
Dude, we're giving away everything.
I know, man. That's 3 things we're giving away. And again, go to briancall.com, go to our videos, leave a comment on the Yeti, Sloan Brown, and Cole Kramer podcast from the Expo, episode 420.
Tell us which of the Yeti colors they have is your favorite.
Or your favorite product, period.
Mm-hmm. Or your favorite product from Yeti. Leave us a comment there. We're going to do that on Friday as well. We're going to give a whole bunch of stuff away on Friday. Do that. Okay. Discounts. Go to Stockisons. If you want some of those Chuck Taylor moccasins, you can go to Stockisons and put in the code GRITTY. Get a discount on those sneaky Stockison moccasins.
I wonder if he had a different name for him at first. Like he tried to fit Chuck Taylor and moccasin together and it didn't work.
Yeah, they're cool. I'm going to start wearing them around the office as a fashion statement.
You missed it. Tanner was here yesterday.
Was he?
Yeah, he was here with a buddy of his, and they were measuring Jordan's feet. Jordan bought a pair.
Dude. Go there and get some cool, help Tanner and his wife get through college, stuff like that.
Use code word GRITTY.
Yeah, they're really cool. And then grunt work. You get a month free if you use the code GRNT, grunt work. Get a month free on that workout with Chris Spieler.
Mm-hmm.
He's put that grunt work program together. Like I said, it's an awesome workout, especially for new people who don't make it to the gym, who just want
make
something.
Make it to the John.
Make it to the gym.
You know someone doesn't make it to the John in time, bro.
1 month free. Check it out. Let us know what you think.
And if you don't know who Chris Spieler is, do yourself a favor. Go to Google, type in Chris Spieler, that's with 2 L's, and then go to images and be alarmed at what you're going to see.
Yeah, Mighty Mouse. He's an amazing human being, but also just fitness is crazy. So then also, Elk 101. If you go to elk101.com, you get and use the code GRITTY, you'll get $20 off the University of Elk Hunting course. I think
How
it's
long has that code been in place?
like a long time. I never use it. Never tell people.
I
about
know
it.
Corey calls you out in this podcast.
So he mentions that. So use the code GRITTY and you'll get a discount on the Elk 101 class. And I highly recommend everybody that hunts elk at all levels go check it out. There's a lot to learn there. And for those who like to hate on the frontal shot, you should go and take the course. Well, that's it. That's it for deals and discounts. Okay, what's up next, Brent? Brent, the music stopped.
Oh my gosh, it did. I've been here for like 6 hours on a Saturday, and there have been people downstairs. I love people, Brian, who bring headphones to the gym. Because it immediately lets me know that they're good peoples.
Okay, is that a thing you like or a thing you hate? You like?
I like that they bring their headphones, and I hate the people that use the speakers. Yes.
You just don't like their music.
Well, that's a given.
What do you expect to hear? What music do you want to hear when you're in the gym?
My music. That's why I bring headphones. What I don't want to hear, and here's the deal, I don't have great music. I have terrible music. I have music that is awful. I refer to it as baby killing music. And you know what I don't do? Play it over the loudspeakers.
Okay.
Because I'm considerate. I have a mother who gave me things that were called, what are they? What am I thinking of?
Manners?
Manners. There's the word. I had a mother who gave me manners. You weren't here because you were out hiking the mountain when you were supposed to be here.
Sorry about that.
You're not forgiven. There was someone downstairs doing some reps.
No, it sounded like war and satanic rituals and hatred and...
The band's called A Day to Remember. But...
You know the band?
Yeah, I knew who was playing. That's not... The point is, I'm not saying that I didn't hate the music. I don't want to listen to your music. I want to listen to my music on my time when I want.
Yeah.
It's like when you're driving in a car and someone stops next to you and they have their windows down and they're playing gangster rap. Mm-hmm. I don't dislike the gangster rap, but I'm listening to something else. It's like if someone came and sat down on you and like their fat roll just kind of leaned over onto you. That's not okay. Stay in your space.
Gotcha.
But someone downstairs around 10 o'clock this morning, Saturday, March 2nd, you know who you are, was screaming, Brian, at the top of their lungs in between whatever they were doing for sets. There was a loud, pause.
It might have been Davey Guns. He was down there.
Davey, stop it.
I don't know who it was.
They did it 10 times.
Well, they might have been doing 19-1 CrossFit open workout. 10 rounds is a lot, though. Not sure. Anyway, I am surprised how much grunting, because I did a video this week that I posted, which is one thing I like, is squats. And I did heavy squats, 3x5s, so 3 sets of 5 reps. Mm-hmm. So 15 total, heavy squats at 315. Trying to move it fast, and it was a good lift, felt good. But the music was off, and I was in the gym by myself, so I don't make noise when I'm in the gym with other people. Mm-hmm. I also generally don't lift quite as much.
Is it because you have manners? I think it's because you have manners, Brian.
Right. Or maybe I'm just self-conscious, but when no one's there, I'm just like, I grunt and I breathe heavy and I make noise.
Oh, for sure. I sound like a water buffalo in heat. And my workouts are way better when there's no one around and I can let it blow. And I get it. I think that screaming does help.
Yeah. I understand about the fat rolls. Okay, so let's move on to what workouts did you do this week? I climbed the mountain twice. Pretty far, pretty deep snow. Hiked once by myself, once this morning with Jordan.
Did you get some sticks?
Got some heavy. He let me borrow some. I haven't figured out the trekking pole thing. I'll share that later. What'd you do?
I did squats and deadlifts and some overhead press. And then squatted not as heavy as I could. I'm kind of taking it a little easy. I was squatting and having really heavy, and then Christmas came. Didn't hardly work out during Christmas. Then we got back here.
Brent felt people. Okay, here's what I tell Brent. This is what I tell my daughter and my wife and everyone. You have to go into the holidays with the plan.
I agree with you.
You have to go with the plan. You have to be like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. When Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's and all that hits, like, you have to go in with a plan, or it will ambush you, and you'll put on 30 pounds, and you'll come completely out of
30.
fitness.
It was like 28.
And you'll feel like crap. Go into it with a plan, bro.
Okay, fine. Yes. Note for next year. This year I got screwed, and so I I've been trying to get back into the gym. I'm not doing as heavy as I would like. I'm about 20 pounds under what I was doing before Christmas hit. And then just did some farmer carries and stuff like that.
The holidays are out to get you. They're out to ambush you. They're out to destroy you. You have to go in with a plan, man, or they will eat you up and spit you out. There you have it, folks. Mailbag. What do we got? We got 2 arrow and broadhead questions.
Yes, I have a question from Stephen Dinkelman. He's got a question about the Valkyries. I just received a test kit from Valkyrie, Brent Hahn. I'm curious as to what weight, head, and total arrow weight you went with. How did you come up with your arrow set? With 509 grain total weight, I start to see the arrow drop considerably. I have not shot them through paper, just looking for recommendations before I call Brent. Thanks, Steve.
You know, there's a lot of guys that are, there's people that are bow experts. I'm not. John Dudley, Levi Morgan, Tim Gillingham. This is how I would approach it. I like my arrow speed to be around 275, 285 feet per second. I don't really want it to be any slower than that. Preferably over 280. So whatever weight I can get, I want maximum weight while still maintaining that speed. I would try to find the setup in arrow weight that gets me that. For example, real life scenario, I have an RX1 that's 80 pounds. That's a 28 inch draw or 28 and a half, a number 2 cam, I think. And I shoot a 505 grain arrow out of that. It's the Valkyrie setup. It's a 200 grain tip with a 250 spine. It's a little stiffer and a little thicker, a little heavier duty setup, a little heavier arrow at 505 grains, but I'm still shooting that at 280 feet per second. Or just a little touch, 283 or something like that. I like that setup. Now, my Carbon Defiant, my Hoyt Carbon Defiant, is a little older bow. I love that bow, especially with a hinge. That bow I have set up so that I'm shooting a 300 spine shaft, so a little weaker spine. The poundage on that bow is maxed out at like 70 pounds. It's a little slower bow. The IBO, listed IBO is a little slower. And it's got it's about the same draw. Out of that bow, I didn't need a stiff arrow. I ended up going with a 300 spine shaft, which is lighter than my 250s. And I ended up going with 175 grain Valkyrie head. So that the total weight of the arrow is about 460 grains, I think. Or 450, 460, somewhere like that. But still, both setups have a 20, 21, 22% FOC, extreme FOC. Both arrows blew through bone, did complete pass-throughs. Both setups flew really great. But again, they're both right around 275, 285 feet per second. Well, like I said, I just liked to get as much weight as I could get on my setup with a heavy front and center, but still maintain that speed. 275, 285, somewhere in there. Guys that are bigger, that have bigger draws, bigger body guys that are pulling heavy weight, like I'm pulling 83 pounds on the RX1, you can go with a little heavier arrow. If Steve is running his setup at 500 and, what was it?
He said once he gets to 509, he starts to notice a drop.
Yeah. It might be just a little too heavy. I would mess around with making the arrow lighter, but still working on that heavy FOC. From my experience, personal experience, I get great penetration, excellent arrow flight in the wind, punching through brush and grass and bushes with a heavy FOC arrow. Even if the overall weight of the arrow, one at 505 and one at 450, I'm still getting, because of I believe because of the heavy FOC design up front, I'm still getting the performance out of the arrow and the deadliness out of the arrow, even though I'm giving up overall arrow weight. That's what I find is working for me.
And you haven't shot at anything without getting a pass through.
No, not with the Valkyrie. Even on the light setup, like I said, the 450 grain arrow shaft setup with the 175 grain tip versus the 505 grain setup with the 200 grain tip, both have passed through animals and bones. Heavy front or center is my thing. I like it. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. Hope that helps.
I got another question. This comes to us from Jared Martin. He's got a question about broadheads. Hi, Gritty. I'm fairly new to archery and planning on hunting this next season. I have a 5-arrow quiver, and I was wondering how many broadheads you would suggest to carry. Because I'm on a budget and not sure if it's worth having 5 arrows with broadheads or 3 would be fine. Thank you for all the great podcasts and being such a great source of advice for a new hunter.
How many arrows to carry with him?
So he's got a quiver that can hold 5, and he's trying to figure out how many of those should be with broadheads and how many with practice tips.
That's, I think, a personal decision.
For me, I like to have a practice tip, but I also want something I can shoot a bird with. And you don't have a regular broadhead on something like that.
I find that when I'm shooting a Valkyrie system, I don't really want to blow a $50 arrow on a or set up on a critter,
on a ptarmigan or something.
So I often bring a different arrow for short range shots that are just cannibalizing, or it's a heavy, thick shafted arrow that I don't mind losing. When it comes to arrows, if I'm going in the backcountry for 14 days, you don't want to go Winchester, man. You never want to go Winchester. You don't want to run out of ammunition. I like the tight spot quiver. That quiver, I think, is the best. I mean, I love it. Low profile. I like how you can adjust the grips that hold the arrow in the quiver. And I have the 7-arrow quiver.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Tight spot makes a 7-arrow where there's 2 arrows that kind of stack below the first 5. It's a really cool design. It's well done. So I like that 7-arrow quiver. I use that for everything. Why not have 7 instead of 5? I can have another. I don't mind carrying an arrow that has a small game tip on it, because I still have 6 broadhead arrows. I like being able to shoot. If you get an animal and you end up needing to take a 120-yard shot or something because you've hit it, but it's wounded, and you're kind of, and you're able to make long shots like that, and you take a shot like that, even though in a normal hunting situation you wouldn't. It's nice to have those arrows in the quiver. It's also nice to be able to shoot a fox or a grouse or a small game animal or anything else that might be legal where you're at, like in Alaska or Kodiak. It's fun. It's fun to have options. And Aaron would always bring a tube of extra arrows, 3 or 4, 5 arrows in that just rubber banded together and in his pack. I do that now too. I just want to be able to shoot. When in season, I like to shoot squirrels as well, and we eat those around the campfire.
There's other legal game out there besides your big game.
Yeah.
And anytime you can shoot something, that's more time you can spend out in the field.
Phil Mendoza went on a bighorn sheep hunt in the Sangre de Cristos with Aaron Snyder. This is back when I first started the podcast. I think it's in the first 50 episodes. It's a very cool podcast. It's old school. You can go back and check that out 4 or 5 years ago now. 4 years ago, maybe. And if you go listen to that podcast, a good friend, Phil Mendoza and Aaron Snyder, they embark on this sweet bow hunting bighorn sheep tag to get out there really, and it's remote, and it's a gnarly hike. If you go watch that video, it's really cool. Watch that podcast, because we overlaid it with all of the photography from that trip. Phil Mendoza runs out of arrows, and that's why they have to leave. They have to leave because he ran out of arrows. Nevertheless, he used a ton of arrows and he had to leave. That sucked, because if he had brought 10 arrows instead of 5 or whatever it was, he'd have been able to stay and probably kill a sheep. Instead, they had to expend calories, time, energy, get out of that country just to get another set of arrows, and then come all the way back in. And he did get a sheep, which is awesome. It's kind of badass. I mean, Phil's a stud, but you just don't want to go Winchester. So bring as many arrows as you can. Like, why not? Before we close, Brent, move on to the podcast, I did want to talk about another thing I like, which is Corey Jacobsen's Elk 101 video that he just released that I think everybody should go check out. It's called Bringing a Herd Bull in Close with Raking. In the Zone, Episode 2 or Episode 1. Go and check it out at elk101.com. It's kind of a companion video to this podcast because in this podcast we talk about raking quite a bit, and in that companion video, Corey talks about raking, how it's done, and goes into great detail. So check that out. Again, that's on elk101.com, and it is called Bringing a Herd Bull in Close with Raking in the Zone, Episode 2. Upcoming events: Total Archery Challenge, BHA Rendezvous, Mountain Obscurity Film Tour. The Utah tag deadline is March 7th. Done. Ready? Anything else, Brent?
Nope. On to the podcast.
On to the podcast. Enjoy. As always, leave us a review. Let us know how we're doing. Win some free stuff. Leave comments in the Valkyrie, the Yeti, and this podcast, and you win some stuff. We'll announce that on Friday. As always, stay gritty, friends. All right. I just put the hat on backwards. We're getting serious.
Busy.
All right. You guys aren't nervous, are you?
Nope.
No.
I am.
You liars. All right.
I wish we knew what we were talking about.
I got you covered.
All right, good.
All right. Welcome to the Gritty Podcast. Today, I have Jason Phelps, Ryan Lampers, and Ryan Carter on the show, and we're going to talk elk hunting. You each sort of hunt a little different. I would say, Jason, you're the diehard elk caller, right?
Yep.
Rut guy.
Yep. Try to use the bugle. Walk as little as possible. No.
Get them to come to you.
Yeah. I use a giant set of lungs. We're not to get ahead of myself, but don't do a whole lot of scouting. Just over the counter. Just go run ridges. Try to find bulls, and I'm not that picky. I'm going to drop on everything. Check them out. See what it is. Try to call them in.
And Ryan Lampers, I would say you kind of are the patient, watch them for days on end, then go in and kill them sort of assassin. Do you call?
Yeah, I do not have the set of lungs that Mr. Phelps has. I've hunted with Phelps, and it's impressive. I am not the world's best caller. I just like to put together whatever it's going to take to make it work. Yeah, a little bit different. Like I said, I've hunted with Jason, and he's a really, really good caller. He knows how to work a bull and get him in. I do like to pick out a bull and target that bull, and whatever method it's going to take to get that bull, whether that's just breaking brush or, some calling or stalking in on them or just sitting and trying to pattern them. That's kind of what
kind of your style.
Yeah.
And Ryan Carter, I have had you on the podcast. You like to watch them with cameras. You've hunted a lot of the same area for a long time. You name your animals like a whitetail hunter.
Have to.
Yeah.
There's too many.
And then you pick out the most impressive elk in the area, and you try to kill them every year.
Right. Well, I'm not killing them for me. I'm a guide. So I'm a little different. Like, I don't get tags here in Utah very often.
Okay.
So I guide the big bulls for other people. So I have to watch size and age class a little bit.
I've interviewed all three of you multiple times, and you each approach it slightly different. Knowing your backgrounds, I do want to just briefly figure out who has killed the biggest bull. I mean, because that really determines who's the best in this group.
I'm out.
Is it our own personal bull?
Yeah.
Personally, I'm probably out.
Where are you at, Ryan?
368.
368?
Oh. Yeah.
What are you, Phelps?
367 and 08.
Oh,
Did
nice.
you know that?
I would think I was 5'8", 368, 5'8" or something. So.
Okay. Lampers?
Oh, I'm sorry, boys, but I got a 371.
Nice.
We both just got.
All right. Ryan's king. Lampers is king. All right.
Mine was a Roosevelt.
I probably would have said that anyway. But.
Was it a Rosie?
Cascade Roosevelt.
Oh,
Wow.
no way.
I don't know, Ryan.
That's pretty legit.
What's
Mine are from Washington. Is that, man?
That's that.
Let's go around the room here, around the horn here. Jason, I want to hear about the elk that stands out the most in your mind. How did it go down?
I always go back. The big bull, naturally, just it means a lot to me. My family got to pack the bull out with me. The story that kind of developed there. Fire danger, Western Washington, industrial timberlands, you get kicked out. And so literally flip a coin, decide we're going to Forest Service, it's still open. Mm-hmm. Without any knowledge of this bull being on the mountain, we stop at a trailhead, hike in, and locate this thing the first morning. We were so tired, we literally just parked in a turn in the road. We were trying to figure out how to find the trailhead. Happened to park at the trailhead, walked in there and located this bull. Drew up a plan, And I was actually supposed to be the caller. My buddy's supposed to be the shooter. A little bit of an inexperienced setup. He set up behind a giant wall of trees. Little did he know I ended up calling that bull into him about 7 yards away. And this is, I mean, a very large bull for Western Washington. And that thing just sat there and ripped bugles like from me to you away. You know, a row of trees between us, and called that bull into 50 yards from me, 7 yards from him, and just to like see that it was one of the most anxious moments of my life.
So how'd you kill it?
So I ended up shooting at it that day because I realized he was going to leave to go to his cows. I had about a 45-yard shot. He was over to the left of my buddy, shot right over his back and missed.
And you didn't pre-target this bull?
No. Found him on the mountain, called him in the very first try. Had him in our laps, going nuts. I'm like, man, nobody's going to believe me how big this bull is. Went to town, came back up the mountain real quick. I relocated the bull that night. Actually had a guy bugling in our basin. Thank God the bull did not answer him. Those guys walked away 10 minutes. I rip off a bugle. He hammers. I could recognize his bugle.
Why did he call back to you? Are you just that good?
No, I don't want to say that. The other guys weren't very good. They were using fluty bugles. It didn't get them going. My first bugle he answered, and we just shut up that night. Went and camped in there, came back that next morning, and I was able to call him in to 43 yards and kill him. Was able to get cell service, got my dads and my uncles involved, the guys that taught me how to hunt. And it was just a cool moment to share with those guys, breaking the bull down, caping him out, and that everybody took a little bit of the bull out on their back. And so it was kind of cool to wrap it up that way. Something that we, in my family, we the raghorn killers, we put meat in the freezer. It's just whatever we needed. And so to experience something completely different than we normally did was pretty special to me.
Lampers. What about you? Standout.
My standout bull. Gosh, I've been sitting here trying to think about that. This Phelps was talking.
There's so many for Ryan.
No. It's not that. It's just each one has its own unique kind of set of circumstances. I mean, I can think of just, bad weather for weeks type bulls that, you stuck it out and it's just torturous. I'm going to go with that big one, though, I think, just because of the history I had with that bull. I was hunting Washington, a spot that I'd done a ton of scouting in, found a good amount of elk, and saw some pretty good bulls in there. I'll try to make this not so long because I could go on for an hour about this whole story. But so I ended up finding a really good, just a nice big 6-point that looked great. Got eyes on him, watched him, got in tight that night, and it was one of those nights where it was just an absolute frenzy. I mean, I had bulls downwind of me, upwind. It was just basically all around me. Couldn't figure out why. It was just I was just in the right spot.
Yeah.
Had that bull within about 40 yards. It didn't happen that night. Ended up coming back the next morning. Ended up getting down below him. Got in a big scream fest with it. It went quiet for a little while. I did throw a little cow call at it. It ended up charging in. And, I'm looking at this really nice 6-point coming in. He stops at 13, right behind the shoulder. Perfect shot. That bull runs down, and I'm basically trying to get another arrow out and get another arrow in him. But, he's breathing hard. He runs down about 50 yards. At that time, I'm thinking that was the herd bull. This is a nice, good, solid 6, and super happy with it. Well, I'm loading another arrow, and all of a sudden, here comes this mammoth bull off the hill, just a giant. Big old bull. I'm not good with inches. I'm just thinking, 350 bull. It's just a monster. And this thing comes within, basically stands in that same spot where I just pinwheeled this previous bull.
Yeah.
And he screams. And he's pissed off because he heard that cow call, and he came down. He thought that little satellite, he's not real little, but he came down to steal a cow. And the big one ended up coming down. And he stood there in front of me and screamed. Well, he went back up to his herd, and I ended up finding that 6-point just down the canyon, and ended up going back to that same spot the following year.
So a year later, you go back.
A year later, did some summer scouting, found that bull. Just a really unique bull. It was a big old 7x8 bull. And,
is he bigger?
I don't know because I'm a terrible judge of score. So, maybe the first time I saw him, he was 370.
Yeah.
Maybe he was the same. I don't know. He's just a giant bull.
Yeah.
And ended up getting in on that bull. Did enough scouting. Found out where he was. Ended up getting in on him. Little triangle patch of timber. That bull wouldn't really do a whole lot with the calling, but it's one of those just break every branch, everything I could in front of me. And got that bull out of his bed, and he came charging in. And I stopped him, 30-yard shot. Everything went perfect. So I ended up getting that monster I'd seen the previous year, and that was that big old 371. So
wow.
That's just kind of a unique story. So,
all right, Ryan, Carter,
Yeah, give me the Carter.
Yeah, Carter. What
Sweet.
stands out? Like, what's that bull for you?
Well, I'm going to shift gears a little bit because typically all the bulls I talk about with you is they're bulls I pattern, we kill with bows.
Mm-hmm.
I had a guy, and he was just here, so it was kind of fresh in my mind. This is probably 10, 12 years ago. We had a bull. I had a girl coming in that was a client. We went in to kill this bull. He's some 7x9, ridiculously big bull. Took her in first day. Had this big 6 come cruising through the same canyon. Most epic bugle I've ever heard, still to this day. Just an awesome bull.
Mm-hmm.
She passed on him because of the score. I told her it's probably like 370 bull. we were
So they passed. I mean, no, yeah.
No, I know it sounds stupid, but like it was back in those years in Utah where Utah was doing 12, 14 bulls a year that was over that 400 mark. We had camera guy, send him up. We filmed the bull. We get back to the cabin that night, start going through footage. I'm like, he might be a little bigger.
I might have misjudged.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I was like, I mean, you're right. He's right there. But
Okay.
we went back in, killed that bull. It was pretty cool. Got her set up. Had one of my guides sitting with her. I fell back, started calling. He rolled through with his cows. She shot him with the rifle at 15 yards. It was cool. Got the bull down, took pictures, hugs and kisses. Then she wanted to know score. And I was like, it's a 370 bull. And she was pretty mad about it at the time. Later, she had officially scored. It was bigger. It was 382 or something. Then she was happy. But she was mad at the time, left a bad taste in my mouth. Anyway, this guy from Vernal came to help us with horses get him out.
Mm-hmm.
He was just up there camping. We'd seen his horses. He said, yeah, let us come up and help. So he comes up. We break the bull down, get him loaded up in the panniers. And he's got a big rifle on his gun. Now, I guide limited entry type hunts. There's not very many tags, 40 of them.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, that's a big gun to be packed around for bears. He goes, oh, no, I have an elk tag. I'm like, dude, let's go kill a bull. Does anybody have a reed? I'm in a T-shirt with, pack frames. Like, we're all bloody. His son pulls out a reed out of his wallet, like an old crappy reed. He goes, well, I got this one. We drop off the ridge. I get the bulls fired up. I work in a bull. He comes through. I'm back calling 40 yards. The bull comes in, crosses in front of him at like 15, 20 yards. He passes on him. In fact, the bull's standing there screaming. He's got his gun up looking, and then he turns around to me and gives me this thumbs up. And I'm like,
what's that mean?
Shoot him, dude. And the bull walks off, and I walk over. I'm like, what are you doing? And he goes, dude, did you see his G5s? They're only like this long. I said, dude, that was his G6. What is wrong with you? He goes, his G5s were not this long. I said, yeah, dude. They were that long. He's like, oh, crap. I screwed up. I said, well, give me a minute. Started working the bull back in. Had him back in a couple minutes. Right at dark. Shot him. 403. Just a good old boy that did.
Wow.
Just
awesome.
happy as could be. Didn't pay a dime. Just great experience. Two of my,
Stand out.
bad experiences and good experiences all in one day. Killed 2 giant bulls within a 24-hour period.
Did you tell her that he killed a 403?
When she came, so she actually went home the day we were packing out. She said, I got to go home, get
It's
some
like
stuff.
that Ryan Carter
I'll
sucks.
come back for the bull. Both bulls were sitting in camp, side by side, 380, whatever.
But aren't you splitting hairs? I mean, you're talking 20 inches, but I mean,
And only
big
guys
is
that
big.
know, right?
Yeah,
Big is big.
I don't think I
and
can
I
tell.
don't care. I shoot a 350 bull and do a flip.
Yeah. Let's go around, and I want to ask you each the same question. The season is coming. You're approaching. How do you typically approach your hunt as you're going into the season?
Well,
what do you do to prepare? What do you do to find the bull you're after and to kill it?
I run a fleet of cameras, like a lot. Like I'm the camera guy, right? So
What's
I like
a fleet?
I don't know.
It's an embarrassing.
It's 100 plus right now.
More than 100
That's
cameras.
what I'll say.
Okay.
There's 120 that I know about. So I run cameras. Cameras just give me a age class.
And
Is what it does.
Let's talk about that a little bit. You're hunting in an area that's a plateau where you can't just get on some ridge and glass for miles.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of like hunting the Oregon coast, I imagine, where they're in there, but you're not going to see them.
Right. I don't carry a spotting scope. I rarely carry binoculars.
So if you're going to find elk in that terrain, cameras,
I rely on cameras.
okay?
And I rely on patterning them, getting their routes figured out. And most of the bulls I kill are all archery, early season. Because Utah starts August 15th. We kill them early. So
And we've talked about that. You've said you would rather go after a bull in the last couple weeks of August at the opening of the season than you would prime rut.
Not that I don't like the rut. I just have a better chance at trophy class and patterning early than I do during the rut.
Lampers, what do you do? Because you have
very different methods here.
You're just weird the way you got to shoot something giant everywhere you go.
Oh, so no
pressure though.
That doesn't happen.
What happens if you start failing and you start, coming home empty a lot?
I just got to work harder, I guess. I don't know. My methods, I just like to be in the best shape as possible. Obviously, like everybody, shoot a lot, have those things dialed. It's different with mule deer versus elk for me. I don't go out looking for, a number or anything like that. I'm from Washington, so we don't have a lot of giant bulls. It's basically wherever you're at trying to get the mature bull at that spot. So that may be a 300 bull. That may be a 310, 320, whatever. Basically just knowing country, knowing the places that you've hunted in the past and seen great bulls and had experiences. Getting in there and just trying to pick out that one. When they're I'm with Ryan, with Carter on this one. It's I like that little bit ahead of the rut. Like you said, the rut is extremely fun, and it's like just fast-paced, and it's crazy bonkers at times, but it can be a little more difficult. That week and a half just prior to it, it seems like a lot of big bulls die in that time frame.
About what time is that for you then? September, first week of September, or the last week of August?
No, it's actually pushing more like that second week in September.
Okay.
We got really, really good rut action that last week and that first week of October over there. That's kind of when it just it's on fire out there.
Last week of September. First week of October.
First week of October.
Does the season go that long in Washington?
So no, what you run into is for archery, you're basically hunting those middle 2 weeks of September. They shut her down for a little bit, and then the muzzleloader guys are able to go in October. So, it's twofold. So I do I say that. I love hunting my home state early, just ahead of that rut. But then I love to go over to Montana and hunt at the end of the rut. But I do hunt different places.
I feel like, for me, I don't kill elk like you guys do, but that October, first week of October,
it's a blast.
Is one of the funnest weeks to chase elk in the West.
You can turn that into a spot and stock hunt in Montana very easily.
This year I hunted the first week of October in Montana. Your general tag. And what's great is a lot of the other states, those tags, their hunting season ends at the end of September. Here I can go to Montana and I get another...
You get till October 15th, basically.
Yeah.
You notice I just moved there. 6 weeks of archery season in Montana as a resident. So,
Okay, so you're like Carter, though. You prefer pre-rut.
Absolutely. And then certain types of terrain, I like that later season.
How many cameras do you have, Ryan?
I don't have cameras. Honestly,
None?
I would...
You're missing out. Do you ever watch DC Carter's Instagram?
I'm really bad at that. No.
At least he's honest.
But
that was a no.
I used to run cameras. I used to run cameras more for mule deer, just trying to locate really good sized bucks for mule deer.
I got to watch Ryan's bull hiss, or a bull hiss on his Instagram the other day.
Yeah.
You ever seen that?
Posturing, yeah.
No.
Describe that, Carter.
A lot of times when elk can't fight, or even when they're hard horned, but it's pre-rut, elk won't clash too hard. That they posture up. It's kind of like a fronting move.
Yep.
And they'll hiss at each other. They'll get up and put their nose in there and they hiss at each other.
I see Jason do that to Charlie sometimes.
Yeah.
That's for different reasons.
No, it's posturing.
But it does that. It kind of makes a hissing sound.
It's kind of like a mad cat. Same sound.
Yeah. Now Lampers is going to go try that sound.
Hiss.
Second week.
I'm gonna go make a hiss call here shortly.
Sweet.
So Ryan can use it in end of August.
That's
It's
right.
wild. Yeah. So that first week, and then do you kind of pattern bull, Ryan, or are you just more or less in your same haunts, like the area?
I know areas from places past, but the last few years it's been getting out and finding new areas. Completely new areas. I hunted with Jason this year in a completely new area. It's pretty easy to locate the biggest bull in the basin. Probably totally different than down where you're at there in Utah. Sounds like you hunt a lot of big timber, and you guys got a pretty good amount of big bulls. But it's pretty easy to find the biggest bull in that basin and target him and go for him. Of course, our hunt in Idaho this year didn't really work out too well for us, but
it was a rough hunt.
It was a rough hunt.
Yeah,
it was tough.
It seemed like it was rough for a lot of people this year. Even Yeah, I struggle a little bit.
Dude, if you don't, you got to have some bad ones. You don't appreciate the good ones.
Yeah, I want some redemption for that.
Yeah, we had
That
some
was brutal.
chances, just not great.
So, Jason, what is your approach going into the season?
Similar to Ryan, I'm not near the shape you or Ryan, or you probably even the other Ryan is. I try to get in as good a shape as possible, start shooting the bow. For me, it's really trying to figure out what's my strategy. What do my hunts look like? I'm trying to get 2, maybe 3 archery hunts in. A lot of what I do now, since I apply for tags in my home state, if you don't draw, you're forced to hunt spike. So a lot of my research is when I get to the spot that I can't really scout, what's my attack? What's my plan A, B, C, and D? And I'm not necessarily afraid to say I use a lot of resources. I'm fairly, through the call business, I'm fairly well connected, have a lot of contacts.
Yeah.
And so I rely on these guys for a lot of information like, hey, A, B, and C, this is where I would go. I would check it out. And so I'm starting to, I start to put this plan together on when I get to this spot in Wyoming, you're going to hunt these basins because that's the farthest you can get away from a road, or in this unit you apply. And so I'm really just trying to strategize on what my hunt's going to look like. And I'm one of those guys. I show up, I don't have a clue. I've got an idea on age class and trophy potential.
Yeah.
From talking to them, but I don't know if there's, and they don't have time to do the scouting for me or run cameras. So you got an idea with a number in your head, and then it's like Ryan said, you can find a bull fairly quick, or based on bugles, and start to pick the country apart. But I show up not knowing where the bull is I'm going to shoot, what I'm even looking for. That'll get determined fairly quickly on the hunt. Whether you're seeing multiple bulls, glassing up multiple bulls, and then you start to kind of focus in on what you're going to kill on that hunt. So my strategy is best shape, start shooting, and then it's more from a planning aspect of when I get there. This is what my plan is going to be.
Right, little different. Tell me, what state is your go-to rifle hunting, elk hunting state?
Who's going first?
You are.
So, I've only ever rifle hunted elk outside of Washington and Montana. It's got a long season. Usually we apply for the big game combo, so I'm trying to get my deer tag and then doing the 2 weeks there. So
in Montana?
Yep. I did a Bob Marshall trip, which I'm cheating because I was rifle hunting in the rut. So
it's not cheating.
September 15th.
That's legal.
Yeah. It's legal, but
right.
but I took the rifle and right back into calling bulls in. But then I did some later rifle hunts during the October 23rd opener or whatever they used to be, and we've had some really good success. So my only option right now is that Montana rifle hunt. That's all I've rifle hunted outside of Washington.
Ryan?
Boy, I have very little rifle experience with elk. I've killed one bull in my life with a rifle, and that was a eastern Montana tag that I drew.
Okay.
That was a fair number of years ago. So everything else has been mostly archery. I love rifle hunting, but more for late season muleys and stuff like that. But yeah, a little bit of muzzleloader hunting. I've really enjoyed that season, especially back in the day in Idaho. But honestly, I've only taken one bull with a rifle. So not the guy to ask.
Oh, my answer's boring. I grew up hunting Colorado every now and then, rifle.
Yep.
When I was a kid in Utah for spikes.
Yeah.
But I've been guiding since 2003. My whole September's here. So I don't even get and I'm fine with it. I like it, So I don't get out and do 100 other states. I haven't in years. I just focus here and kill bulls for other people.
I've done a fair bit of late season rifle hunting for elk. There's a lot of opportunity out there to chase elk, especially like Montana, Colorado, and they're over the counter. You just go out and buy a tag.
They're over the counter as long as you buy it before the first day of season. I was on a deer hunt in Colorado, and I was standing at the checkout.
Yeah.
And there was a line over there.
I see some bitterness on your face.
There was a line over there for elk tags. I'm like, it's just money, right? We probably won't run into a big bull. Day 3 of that elk hunt, we're sitting there glassing, looking for deer, spot a couple of deer. Here comes a herd of elk kind of run out in the meadow. You expect maybe, at least from where I come from, rifle season, November, there's some raghorns running with the herd. Nope, here comes Mr. 340 bull, big, heavy, massive 6, sits there and spins in the meadow. Here, you could have this angle. You could have had this angle.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I should always buy an elk tag if it's available.
If you bought that tag, he wouldn't have been there.
That's probably right.
We went on a youth elk hunt, third season Colorado. We bought it over to the counter. We were also simultaneously using a mule deer tag, a youth mule deer tag that the kids drew. We saw 2 330, 340 bulls right in there at that time. Kids missed them. But great opportunities there. I've been looking at Arizona, late season archery. There's some opportunities there.
Pretty easy to draw, 4 or 5 points, 3, 4, 5 points. You can get.
And you're in Unit 10, and I think from year to year, I was just talking to my uncle about this, who guides in Arizona. He's saying that from year to year, you can have a lot of broken bulls if you wait that long. But some years you don't, he said. I'm just kind of surprised.
4 or 5 points, though, I'll take the broken bulls. Go have fun. Yeah.
That's what
it's not 20-something years. Sounds great.
And they said they went out the other day and were flinging arrows at, mature bulls. So, man, you guys are not knowledgeable on this.
I've researched a little bit, but the broken bulls, I seen a picture the other day of a guy that killed a 60-inch main beam something, but he had all 8 of his points were like this all the way up.
Sawtooth points.
Yeah, he was completely broken.
Nice.
No, I've heard your podcast with
Kevin,
down in Arizona.
You stopped by the house there.
I did. Yep, swung in, had some breakfast. I've heard about that, and I'm parked at about 5 points for elk now. So, I'm going to take his advice next year, probably go for it, and try to run one of those late season tags.
I think that it's intimidating for people. You're hunting elk in the snow with a bow. You're dealing with the snow, and it's crunchy. And
you're kind of hoping for a little bit better conditions. I mean, he was even saying, if you got the snow down there, which you are highly likely to that time of year, it crunches up and stays cold. I mean, that's pretty tough conditions to get in on it with a bow.
But yet, a guy just bought a tag and went out, and I'm like, how many? Was it a tough hunt? Did you see any elk? He's like, oh, yeah, we shot a few arrows, and we were on stalks every day. So
I've talked to some guys.
Can't ask for more than that.
The last couple of years, I got some buddies that have been going down there and doing that. They're not telling me what units they're hunting or anything like that, but they're getting some really nice bulls and having just a blast. I mean, stalks every day.
Ryan, let's talk real quick about calling and kind of go around the horn here. I have heard stories about you, and I've had you on the podcast where you talk about raking a lot and rubbing trees and stuff, and using that solely. I mean, or at least that being a big part of your calling technique.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, first off, sorry, Jason. I hate to
No,
act as if. But no, it works really well. So, like back when I was learning to elk hunt, I was kind of late in the game. I was in my late teens when I started elk hunting. But I had a mentor, and that was he's a North Idaho old country boy. His name was Dallas Blood, had one of the coolest names ever. Just lived for elk hunting. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things he taught me is, he really had a lot of experiences up there with different bulls, and he pays attention to the cadences and how they, size each other up, and every single, little thing that they do prior to actually coming to that point where they fight. And raking just seemed to fit the style that he was showing me, and he did it a lot. And we raked in a ton of bulls. A lot of those bulls get called to quite a bit. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it was a little bit less calling and a lot more raking, and that's all it took. And, when you're out there in the woods and you hear those bulls crushing trees, and that's just one of those things that will put a bull like over the limit, and he's just going to come kill that other bull. It's worked really well for me. Some of my better bulls have come from just basically raking and keeping my Phelps game tube back at the truck.
So exactly
easy.
So exactly how
there's always bugling.
What's the all you do is you're gonna have 100 guys just standing there raking all this year. Like, what exactly do you do? Like, how do you read the bull, and how do you decide when to do it and how to do it?
Yeah, so it's real similar. If there's bulls in the basin, you get to those points, you get to those little spines, those vantage points, or wherever, you pitch a locator call similar to that. You can basically echo that breaking of branches throughout that valley, and you'll get bulls to stand up and get fired up that way. And sometimes it starts with the bugle fest, and you go back and forth, he quiets up even when you get in tight, and that's that last little step that puts him over the limit. Sometimes as they're sizing each other up with the bugle, you get that part, and then you get generally the break brush back and forth with each other.
Yep.
And then you get to that point where they want the visual. They want to size that other bull up, so they do the big circle around each other before they come together. Sometimes it's at that point where they're in tight and you kind of hit a stalemate and you start breaking brush. And I just figured out over experience after experience, that was one of those things that kind of pulled them in that last little bit to show themselves and give me a side view shot. So,
okay.
I wouldn't recommend just going out and, hitting every tree you come to, start raking up and down, but there's strategic places where you're going to get that to carry throughout a basin just like a bugle.
Gotcha. Ryan, I know you are known for early season and trying to kill that giant bull first day, second day, first week, but you can call elk.
Oh, yeah. No, we bugle a lot.
So
Our rifle hunt, that's what you do. But I still take this approach. Everything I do is public land. Mm-hmm. And even though there's only 40 limited entry tags or 70 limited entry tags, there's still general season deer and spike hunters in there. They're constantly bugling. Our elk don't respond to it very well.
Okay.
So I will locate bugle a lot. But it's pretty rare that I ever, once we're in tight, do the dance with a bugle. That's when in fact, that story I told, that's how I got that bull in the last little bit. I just started raking a tree with it. And I don't even rake very often. I'll just make I break branches. I just make noise. Mm-hmm. And so it's huge for elk in the area where I'm at, where they don't respond to calling so well. Once you're in tight with them, once you're both doing that dance at 150 yards, just making noise will finish the game. That's all it'll take, because if they think there's a herd, if they think there's 3 or 4 cows in there instead of just one bull they're dancing with, that's all they'll do. It's lights out.
Yeah, elk make elk sounds.
Yep.
And sometimes,
and they're not quiet animals.
No, they're not. Sometimes people, I think, they freeze up at that moment where you're pretty dang close. It's almost going to happen. They freeze up and they just don't want to make a sound. And that seems like that's like the worst thing you could do. Elk are noisy. They make sounds. They're always snapping twigs. Sometimes it's just having some sticks in your pocket and just popping them. Keep on making those sounds, and that's what finishes.
It lets their guard down a little bit. I swear it does.
So, Ryan, is your go-to then kind of like locator bugle, and then when you kind of know where there's a bull calling back to you, then what do? You work in close, or?
My go-to is to ambush them in August. But, yeah, during the rut, that's what I like to do.
Okay.
We do a lot of locate bugles because we know what bulls are kind of already in the area. We're checking cameras long before we spend a lot of time, figuring out what's there. Because I don't want to run those ridges for bulls that I don't have the energy to do. I'm getting old.
Well, and once those bulls stop coming in on those patterns, you're left with the rut. Do you bring in a lot of bulls?
Corey Jacobsen sitting out there, feeling left out.
Dude, where is
Corey?
he?
All right, I'll leave.
Where is he? Where'd he go? There he is, right there. Oh, sucker.
Bring in the master.
No, you bring him in, or you close in that last bit of distance.
Yep.
You're calling in the bull the wrong bull.
I'm not calling him for me. I'm calling him for a shooter.
Yeah.
And
then what happens when it's not the bull you want?
Back out. Start again.
Same
as he has to do.
Let him go away.
Yeah.
Then we start running again.
All right.
That's why you got to be in good shape.
All right, Jason. So tell me
So I don't get to hunt pre-rut. I do love those. My opinion, where I hunt, I'm going to kill the biggest bulls that 1st to the 10th of September. Now, hunting from the 10th to the 30th is sometimes a lot funner due to bugles, but the same way. But I feel by the time you get to September 1st, I can locate most any bull, or I can get a response. So my goal is to run the ridge, run a trail system, and basically bugle out those ridges and just start trying to locate bulls. Now, the disadvantage of not having trail cameras, I don't have a clue what's in that basin. I'm going to have to call him in, or try to call him in, see what's there. I'm going to have to glass across the way, to see what he is. So I'm going to bugle, get the wind right, and then try to call that bull in. Similar, just like Ryan and you've said, a lot of raking. Almost every setup, you'll see either the cameraman, or if we have a third person, their job is a stick man. They're going to grab that stick. Ryan,
back. Yeah.
We used to grab small sticks. Thanks to Ryan, we now grab old growth limbs, because Ryan told me that big bulls know the little stick doesn't sound like a big bull's horns clanking.
Right.
So we're grabbing bigger sticks, making bigger noises, and we're doing raking. So we're trying to call that bull in through challenge bugles, trying to paint that picture that there's a cow there on the edge of the herd, and then challenge bugle that bull in. Now, I say that, but you can't go through every situation. We may test the waters. If that thing's answering nothing but cow calls, we may just stick with cow calls. If that's working, we'll stick with it. And like you guys have both already said, 80 to 100 yards, sometimes we just finish them with raking, some real subtle elk sounds at the end. Welcome,
right,
Corey.
So I just showed up, so I can...
How you feeling, buddy?
I'm great.
Good.
I'm really good now that I have a chair to sit in.
So
I just want to say Jason's making everything up. So I don't know what he just said, but I know it was all made up.
All lies.
That's
Well,
kind of
now
weird.
Now it's where you can just sit back and listen to the master
No.
talk.
Yeah.
You're not on there.
All the pressure's off.
That's what I told Brian. I'm like, don't give me a microphone. Just give me the headset. I want to listen here.
Hello.
I'm glad you made it.
Hear me?
Go.
Me too.
No.
I woke up this morning at 7 o'clock and thought, I feel well enough to travel.
Nice.
Love it.
Jumped on a plane and
You
here I am.
Well, good.
Good to
I'm
have
glad
you.
you're feeling better.
How long ago did you guys start?
Half hour?
Yep.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So I missed all the good stuff.
Oh, we were just talking trash on you.
Oh, man.
Now we gotta.
All right, let me qualify things here. Anything that was said up to this point about me is not true.
Should I start hosting the podcast?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Corey, what was our last question? What do you? How
No,
do you finish
The
off?
one I want to hear is the first question was give us a story, your most memorable elk hunt story. Go.
Well, at my age, I'm lucky to remember last season, so it's going to be a recent one. Most memorable, gosh, there's so many. I couldn't even, my son, his first elk was awesome when he was 11. His first archery elk 2 years ago on the Linguist. My big bull in 2008 in Arizona. My littlest bull in 2009 in Idaho. Hard to pick a favorite.
Bro, I got lots of stories too.
Yeah.
You got to pick one. You're
Gotta
on the
pick
spot
one.
here.
All right.
I want to hear it.
My favorite, does it have to be one that I shot?
No.
Okay, excellent. So my favorite one is probably Donnie's first archery elk. And so Donnie and I started hunting together in 2006, I think. Worked together, and he had been archery hunting for 17 years and had yet to kill an elk with a bow.
Wow.
So it was kind of like, hey, come with us. And he actually took us to his area, and we got up to the top of the ridge and let out a bugle, and bull answered. He's like, they always bugle right down there. And so I said, all right. And he started walking down the hill. I'm like, whoa, where are you going? He's like, it's bugling down there. We head down to it, right? And I said, no, we're going to circle around the basin. And so he had been going the same way, dropping down on the elk for 17 years with the wind going downhill. And so we circled around the basin and didn't get one that day, but we went back 3 days later, just down the drainage a little bit. And middle of the day, bull bugling from his bed, got in there with the cows, ended up busting the cows out of there and got in between the bull and the cows and bugled. And bull came up, so I'm standing behind him. Didn't know the bull was turned around coming back to us. And I'm standing behind him, and all of a sudden he comes to full draw, and I thought, awesome, he's going to shoot a cow. This is sweet. First elk. And I didn't even see until the elk was at about 17 yards and saw antlers and all of a sudden shot. And he turned around, and his reaction, I thought he'd hit his arm with the string of his bow. And he just starts shaking and he almost screaming. He's like, ee, ee. And he turned around, I'm like, what? And he's like, perfect shot. So
Donnie's awesome.
Went
That's
60
great.
yards, his bull's laying right there. And
That's a hard lesson to learn. 17 years. Ooh.
Yep. And honestly, there's been a few people I've heard of that have hunted that long and not killed one, but I think that's he gets the award for persistence.
No kidding.
That wind lesson's a tough one.
Can you hear me?
That's a tough
You
one.
can?
Well, that's awesome. That's the story I wanted to hear. Good.
Yeah.
That's great. I saw Donnie yesterday.
Yeah, he's here.
Yeah.
I don't know where he
I'm
went.
still waiting for my ride in that cool Jeep of his.
No kidding, huh?
I want it. Yep. I want it. I want just to cruise down Main Street in that thing.
Yep.
It's a Cadillac.
Every time my wife sees him, she asks if he wants to trade for our little Subaru, and he hasn't done it yet. We're just floundering here without you to lead us, Brian.
I'm hosting the podcast, okay? You want me to
You're
keep
doing
rolling
great.
with
Keep
it?
it up.
Ryan's awesome.
Keep going.
The next question we had to answer was
How do you prepare?
how do you prepare? What
Each year.
walking into season? What's your first step? What's your prepare method?
Like how far ahead?
Now till season.
Right now?
Yeah.
So February. So it starts, there's a Krispy Kreme donut shop on the corner of, this time of year I'm really focused on e-scouting and making the plans for fall. So, I think right now it's kind of locking in where, when.
Tags.
Yeah, tags. What week I'm going to go here, what week I'm going to go there. From there, it gets into specific scouting because most areas we hunt, we don't go back to the same area. So we're finding new areas, at least a new area within an area each year. So I spend quite a bit of time. And then physically, I try to just year-round not get, I don't go into the cycle like I used to where, July 1st, it's like, elk season's 2 months away. I got to hammer away at the gym here and, get on the treadmill or the stair climber. And I try to just keep a good fitness
Rhythm.
routine throughout the years so that it's not as much of a shock to me and my body. So I'm doing that, and then shooting the bow. We live up in the mountains. We've got 50 inches of snow in the last 8 days. And so going outside to shoot, I can shoot 20 yards inside, but...
Do you know you can move south?
I just moved north 2 years ago. So that is the one blessing. We have elk in the backyard, but...
That's awesome.
50 inches of snow is...
That's a lot of snow.
It's in 8 days.
I feel like I'm really loud.
You are loud.
You are.
You are
Yeah.
loud. You know what's interesting? I just need to point this out.
Yeah.
Like every guy up here is wearing a black shirt and facial hair. I think there's something to kill an elk with black shirts and facial hair.
I think so, except Corey's a little light on the facial hair.
I literally just trimmed my goatee
He's
last night.
sick. Give him a break. Jeez.
Yeah, you're sweating a little. You're glistening.
I'm not sweating. If I take my hat off, you'll see glisten. Why am I sitting out here by myself?
You can move your chair if you
Thank
like.
you.
We just wanted to listen to you. This is a better.
It's like I feel like I'm in the center of the circle here.
Me and
Thanks,
Lamp
Ryan, for taking
Yeah.
over. I appreciate that. He's crushing it.
He's got a future in
I know.
podcasting.
No,
I know.
I don't.
We're going to bring him on like full time. How many game cameras do you use, Corey, for elk?
I've got 6, so I use probably 3 or 4. Similar to Ryan. I mean, we both put out 3 or 4.
But you do use cameras.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You got a cool bear clip. Was that last year? The grizzly?
Oh, the grizzly.
Oh my gosh, that was cool.
Oh, yeah.
I geek out on stuff like that. I love it. Yeah.
No, the clip was really cool. The whole sequence of getting the camera at the end of the hunt was not well thought out.
Yeah.
That was sketchy.
You have to make sacrifice to get a cool reward like
That's right. That's what it takes.
Yep.
that. Yeah.
So we were kind of going around the horn and asking, what your technique is, getting in and killing an elk. But you're pretty much call or go home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think in my old age, I'm gaining wisdom, and I'm willing to adapt like the last hour of the last day. So I've come a long way.
You did do a spot and stock with Randy
I was going to
Newberg.
say, last evening of the last day, I resorted to spot and stock, and
And how fun was that?
it was incredibly boring and hot.
Ryan,
but
how
I-
does that make you feel?
That's terrible. No, it is a blast. Corey. Yeah,
But I killed an elk, so that made it enjoyable. And,
Yeah.
well, it made it worthwhile. Maybe not enjoyable.
I got to admit, in the rankings, sneaking up on an elk and killing it has its,
Oh, yeah.
it's incredible. But it's not as cool as when they come charging in, breaking branches, and you see the whites of their eyes and stuff.
Yeah, and I tell people all the time, if you want to be successful, there are probably more efficient ways to kill an elk than trying to call them in. But there's not anything that produces that much adrenaline.
Yeah,
for sure.
I don't know about
I'll
that.
agree
I
with
go
that.
hunt with Corey for one morning, and he calls a bull in on the first try, and he comes running in and gives me a shot. I mean, it seemed
Yeah, I mean,
didn't
we're
seem that hard to
100%.
me.
We're 100%.
Yeah, we're 100%. So
Dude, when you know what to say, they come.
Yeah.
Well, if you get lucky.
So, Corey, where is your favorite late season places to hunt?
Like second week of September?
No, gosh, this is a rough crowd. Do you guys chase elk after the rut at all?
You can hunt elk out
I
of the
don't.
rut.
No, I don't.
Not really.
That's whitetail season.
So I'll share with you.
You have with your son.
I was
you've
just going to
done it.
say, I'll share that hunt because we actually called the elk in the last week of October. So that was a late season hunt, and we still got to call it in. So
Don't you think there's a lot of late season opportunities that
There
aren't
are.
for elk that aren't really capitalized on?
totally. Yeah, and you get those elk, especially the bulls, like in November. Once they bachelor up, they aren't moving anywhere. They're just locked into that little area. And if you know where they're at, I think especially, most of the opportunities are going to be probably archery for the later part, late November. Montana's got a rifle season that goes to November 24th or something like that.
Yeah.
And there are some rifle opportunities, but I think if you know an area, finding a bull is probably easier late season like that than trying to find them early season before the rut.
Their migration's done. No
Yep.
matter what state, November, they've kind of made their migration. They're exhausted. Their fat reserves are gone. They're slow.
Yep.
I think it's a good time to capitalize if you got a state with a good unit for that.
So we were talking about calling a little bit ago. All Ryan does is bang sticks against trees. Doesn't really call much. actually.
and
No,
Ryan.
but I mean,
The two
Phelps,
Ryans feel
Ryan,
that way.
and Phelps. And Phelps described how you need to do it with the log.
The bigger the
the
better.
log, the bigger the bull.
Well, that was the Ryan tip I picked up a couple years ago.
And how's it working so far? You think he's right?
Yeah, I think if you pick
Yeah.
up a bigger stick, bigger bulls will come in.
Man, I'm going to pick up a big one.
So is there a statute of limitations on sharing stories that happened a long time ago that may be conceived to not be?
There's no.
Okay,
No.
there's
Yeah.
not. So
Dive in.
I can share a story
Share-
from a long
share
time
away,
ago.
yeah.
1970. I want to hear it.
So in Yellowstone National Park, you can't use calls.
Oh.
So just, for those of you out there that want to go to Yellowstone and call in elk in September, you can't use calls. And we knew that, and we got in there, and I thought, we hiked way back in here. I'm just going to blow a call and just see, just see. Completely ineffective. The elk wouldn't even lift their heads and look at the call. In fact, they'd go quiet for like 10 minutes after I called. And we saw there were 2 bulls on the edge of the meadow. One started raking a tree, and like 6 bulls came out of the trees into the meadow, running across the meadow towards that bull. I thought, well, if he can do it, I can do it. So I picked up a stick and started raking a tree. Exact same thing, like 4 bulls came running to us. And that's really what opened my eyes to how effective raking is. And so same thing. I don't use it by itself, but it's usually the finisher that get the bull fired up and then rake a tree, and that's kind of the closer for the deal.
And to piggyback on what Ryan said earlier about being able to hear it across the basin, one of the bulls I called in for my buddy this year, we located him by hearing a bull rake across the basin. Like, what is that? Because we just called a calf in, and we were kind of on alert. I'm like, you could hear a bull raking. Sure enough, after about 15 minutes of some like soft chuckling, we finally got him to like give us 3 or 4 soft chuckles, and so we were able to locate him for almost 500 yards away just from him raking.
What's your theory behind that?
Me?
Yeah.
Behind why a bull rakes?
Why? No, but why does that work more than the calling?
I think calling, you're able to, and my philosophy and my style of calling is more the challenge, get in their face, challenge them, put the ball in their court, bring them in that way. And I think raking's a display of dominance. The bulls do it to kind of, it goes to the big stick deal. The bigger you can sound raking, the more dominant you sound. And so I think that you challenge a bull over and over, and then you start displaying your dominance, and they're like, all right, I've got to come in and really get a visual here and see if this is a more dominant bull.
Is that your theory, Jason?
I think so, yeah. I mean, it's a natural sound. Just like elk calls, they also rake. And, I pay a lot of attention to the cadence and then try to match that cadence, because people can smash your foot. You can. So I've found with some guys that start banging the stick against a big tree. I'm like, no, they're not. That's not the sound they're making, like, going to brush. And so,
right.
But yeah, back to the dominance. It's just one of those things where it's an elk noise, just like calling the bull in. They hear it. They know what that sound is. And they're coming to check you out.
I think that's spot on. Like what I was saying before, I don't even try to – raking's not even the thing for me. It's just making noise.
Yeah.
I want that bull to think there's cows in there too.
Yeah.
Like the big stick thing's great, and it does show like a heavier horn for sure. But making
You're just
noise –
breaking branches.
when I'm closing the deal, I don't want to stop and be quiet because it'll put them on alert. If you got someone behind you stomping around, they think there's more than one elk in there.
Yeah.
It does a trick for me sometimes.
Yeah.
So, and I may have missed out earlier conversation, but Ryan, I know you like to hunt them earlier, the big bulls especially, with less calling. Are you making noise as you're going in early season too, or is it more?
With my rifle hunters in the rut,
Yeah.
we do a lot of calling, a lot of like noise. We're running the whole time.
Yeah.
But when I kill the big bulls, we went over it, but that's like I ambush them.
Yeah.
I don't make any noise. We're in tree stands. We're in ground blinds. Those onyx is about the loudest thing we got going. So that season, we're quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what about glunking? Do you guys use it? And if you do, how do you like to use it?
I'll let everybody
Did
know.
anybody want to talk about
That
it?
is not a question for me because I would never consider myself a good caller.
I love
Like-
to hear it. I never try to replicate or to use it during my call-ins.
Okay.
I usually know when I hear that bull's somewhere between 80, 60 to 100, somewhere out there. I love to hear it, and I usually get ready, but I don't actually, or I never have up to this point, tried to glunk back at them.
I'm real similar. Same answer, basically, because I've never used the call, but, yeah, it's kind of fun to listen to. And I've found bulls in the past, so, that's like their go-to call, which is weird. Every once in a while you'll get into a spot where there's a lot of different bulls, and there's one glunker out there.
Yep.
And yeah, I don't have the answers to that one. No idea why.
Glunking just as far as like hissing, preseason, glunking is a rut posturing move. I don't think I've ever called in a bull with a glunk. I don't do that. It's not important to me, but when I hear them, it's more of a posturing move. It's more of a dominance thing. And that's my opinion.
I get to be the oddball again here.
We're all waiting to hear from the expert.
You aren't hearing from the expert, but so I glunked a bull 30 years ago. I was probably 14 or 15, and I just took my bugle tube and just went, pounded on the end of it like that. And this bull came in, and he was a younger bull, came in quiet. And I thought, well, there's something to this. Didn't understand it. It always sounded plasticky and didn't sound like an authentic call. And we hunted Arizona in 2005 and called in a big, like 355-inch bull for my buddy. And it came down the hill from 300 yards. You could hear it just ba-boom, 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 just glunking the whole way down. I've never heard a young bull glunk. It's always been mature herd bulls. And 3 years ago, we were on Hunt of a Lifetime, and we get to hunt just a premier unit with these kids who have cancer and other life-threatening illnesses. And there was a bull that was hung up probably 300 yards from us. And I hit my bugle tube, just a series of probably 6 or 7 glunks. That bull left his entire herd of cows and came. I mean, you could see dust flying off the hill as he came to us, came running. And so I think when you get those mature bulls and glunk, the only time I hear it is when they're with cows,
right,
and when they're a mature bull. So I think it's got to be something to do with breeding. I don't know. I don't know the science behind it.
I was going to say that the 3 distinct times I've seen or heard glunking, I've seen that bull within like 5 yards of a cow, basically pushing her around. Yeah. So typically that noise is him following her or pushing her. From the times I've seen it,
Yep.
He's right on top of her.
So since that time, I started using it more, and it's almost like last resort. I'll bugle, I'll rake, I'll do everything. And if I can't break him loose, I'll glunk. I would say I'm batting probably 90% on breaking that bull loose and coming in when I glunk. And I don't know the science behind it. I just know that a mature bull seems to leave his cows when you glunk at him.
And I only ask because I hunted with Corey last year, and then he did it, and they got the bull really excited. So then after Corey left, I did it for Casey when I was calling for Casey. And I had bulls like coming in, hanging up at about 80 yards, but they were just going crazy. All I was doing was that sound, a little bit of other
same
way.
Yeah,
I just copied Corey.
And there's actually a cadence to it. You know, when you hear a bull, it's more of a ba-boom, ba-boom,
Yep.
ba-boom. It's a two separate sounds there. And so if you just hit the end of your bugle tube and just one dimension, just hit it, sounds like raindrops more than glunking. But if you get that double, just ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom.
Yep.
I've seen their chest do like a weird thing when they do it.
Yeah.
It's coming from their chest somehow.
I was going to say, it's an internal noise.
And so that 2 rhythm thing, there's something to it.
For the next 3 days, I did it up there, and we had bulls just coming in from all the sides. And when I'm calling and bugling and raking a tree, there was some excitement. But when I started doing that, it was like, whoa, they just all came in closer and were screaming. And I like to blame the fact that we didn't tag out on Casey, not on my calling, but it's an interesting sound. It's just another thing that I think to add into that arsenal and try. It was pretty cool.
And I think, we were up there, the 18th through the 22nd, so we're peak rut. We're, right there at peak estrus.
Oh, I could hear them glunking.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, I'm going to do it back.
Yep.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, the whole calling elk thing, though, or like spot and stock elk, I'm of the opinion you do whatever it takes to kill one.
Totally.
Opportunist.
Yep.
I would agree with Corey, though. The spot and stock, it doesn't get my heart racing. It never has. I mean, it's exhilarating, all that for elk, but it's not as like blood pumpingly excitement and all that jazz when you're screaming at a bull. You just getting the biggest fight, and he comes in to kill you.
With that being said, though, I was 4 hours on my stock on that bull I shot in New Mexico. I've never been more physically tired covering 200 yards than I was from that. And I think, just
slow movements,
one
for long
movement
periods
on
of time,
tippy toes,
wears you
barefoot. Every little minor muscle in your leg is just twitching, trying to keep you from.
You're speaking Ryan's language.
I know.
He's like a ninja.
Yeah.
No, it will definitely, like you say, it'll wear you out. I mean, you come, like, just even with mule deer, we probably shouldn't talk mule deer, but after a long stalk, like a couple hours, you're physically drained.
Yeah.
Because you're moving at such a slow, sloth-like pace. It's crazy.
And mentally, I think the mental part of a stalk contributes to that physical being tired.
Absolutely.
We got to wrap up this podcast. Let's go around, the circle here, and let's start with you, Corey.
Oh, put me on the spot.
Yeah. For a guy that's brand new to archery hunting elk, what's your advice?
Man. Since I get to go first, I'm going to share the obvious one that everybody else right now is going, we got to talk about this.
Don't steal it.
Yeah. Thermals, understanding thermals and paying attention to the wind. And it's different in the mountains. Somebody coming from back east, whitetail hunting, they understand thermals from a tree stand standpoint, but it's more wind direction. You know, when you're hunting the mountains, a lot of times you're dealing with primarily thermals, which are temperature related. And so understanding that, understanding how they work on a south face versus a north face, knowing when they change, there's a diurnal switch, they switch from blowing down to up, and just really understanding thermals and how elk use thermals to move, because elk absolutely move with the thermals. And knowing that and being able to track them down, call them in, all that, the number one thing that I pay attention to is the thermals or the wind.
Cool. Carter, what you got?
Dude, that was all I had.
Dude,
Tell me the question again.
come on. A new guy, just tell him how your beard is so shiny.
Mountain Ops beard oil this morning. New guys, your most important thing is tag allocation. So I guess thermals is obviously the most important part. That's big. It's huge. But I think getting tags would probably be your most important thing to do. Like learning how to – I guide limited entry hunts, and I get calls every day from people who have no idea. And I'm like, look, dude, it takes 20 years to hunt with me. And I tell them every day, like, we don't even have a chance. We shouldn't even be having this conversation. You're never going to hunt with me. And it's sad. It's hard to tell people that, but that is probably the best advice I could give someone just walking into the scene. Start learning how to play the point system. It's really important. If you want a chance to hunt elk, that's what it takes.
So from your position, what are the one or two recommendations you'd give a guy to start? Where would you have him put his points or his time?
Not Utah.
No, not Utah. The thing is the big bull units, there's a 12-point point creep. I mean, if you're under 12 points, you're never going to draw those tags. But there's a lot of units that don't get a lot of hype that you'll kill a 320 bull, a 340 bull even, on decent units with 5 points. 5 points? Right. It's possible. But there's a lot better states. New Mexico, there's no preference point system. So every 2-3 years on a lot of the units, you can get a tag. And Montana, every couple of years, you can get a tag. And Idaho's over the counter. There's places you can hunt every single year.
Ryan has big bulls on his mind. That's yeah. Right.
No, I mean, look at his success. It's big bulls.
That's why I guide and I don't hunt. That's why half the questions don't apply to me.
You're like new hunters? Yeah, whatever.
I don't want to talk to you.
All right, Lampers?
Kind of along the lines of what Carter was saying here, I would just recommend you got to get experience before anything else. And I just look at states, like Idaho, Montana, places where you can hunt elk every single year, get those years added up and gain that knowledge. I think that's probably the most important thing for guys is just getting out there and getting the experience.
What if a guy's scared or he doesn't quite know what to do or he's intimidated by the whole process?
Get Corey's Elk 101 and solve that problem.
It really is true.
Yeah, no, for sure. That should have been my number one answer is if you're just getting into it.
Yeah.
Elk 101.
Take Corey's course. How much is the course, Corey?
It's $99, but I'm pretty sure we have a gritty code, don't we? Use the code gritty, and you'll save.
I should probably promote that more.
I don't
There's
know
a
what
gritty
you'll save.
code, and you'll save some money.
Yeah,
if you go to Elk 101.
Well, let's make it $20.
All right,
I'll change it if I need to.
Okay,
that's cool.
One more thing is, and just speaking from experience, probably the most effective thing for me was finding a mentor. I shaved so many years off of elk hunting frustration. Just getting a hold of one old timer that had done it his whole life. He was passionate about it. He was excited to share what he'd learned. Man, he fed me so much information that I tailored what I do today to what he taught me, and that helped a lot.
That's good advice. I think it's sometimes difficult to find that mentor.
For sure.
I just did a podcast on the NPR piece, Shooting Bambi to Save Mother Nature. And on that show, my brother, the Gritty Broman, actually was like, yeah, mentoring other people, it's a lot of work. It takes time. And it said in the article that you should prepare to put in 2 to 4 years of mentorship on a new hunter. And he's like, 2 years? But you're right. Once you've taught someone that's eager to learn,
well, and
they're hunters for life.
I'm at a point now where, and a lot of experienced hunters, and I know Corey, you take guys out, and we should all, if we've had years of success and we've done this a while, we should be putting back some of that time. Maybe it's 1 hunt or 2 hunts a year. This year I've got 2 hunts with complete novices. It's going to burn up some of my time, but I'm excited for those hunts more than anything else. Somebody that's never done it before in their life, and just getting them out there and trying to explain it and show them how exciting it is and why we love it. So I think we need to do our part as well. Guys that have had some experience doing it.
Yeah, I think you all should volunteer half your season for other people.
Well, I think everyone here could say probably the best memories I've ever had is calling in bulls for people who've never seen an elk scream.
Yeah.
Especially a younger person.
Straight up, that is when you get them bulls right on top of them. Their
That is
eyes
special.
are wide. Their noses flared. They freaks them out. It's great.
Yeah.
And
All right.
just to add
Yeah.
to what Ryan
Yeah.
said, I that's probably the best point that we should have made first. Is we're selfish. There is no doubt. Our time in the woods is valuable. It really is. And to sacrifice that time to go with somebody that doesn't have a clue what they're doing, that's going to annoy us and irritate us because it's so simple for us. Yeah. It's hard to make that, but once you do it, it's so much more rewarding than hunting for yourself. And I think just getting people to that point where it's like, sacrifice 5 days and take somebody that is eager to learn. Don't take somebody that doesn't put in time. Take somebody who's eager to learn, that wants to learn, and that's going to be a lifelong reward. And if you'll do that on a regular basis, it's
well
Gritty
worth it.
Broman got a number of private messages, DMs, and emails that he needs to change his attitude. The Gritty listeners did not appreciate his lack of
Compassion.
compassion giving nature. But you're right, we are all a little selfish when it comes to hunting. It's tough to share your time, but it is important. And like Ryan, you talk about all those years you shaved off of your learning curve. That's might be the sort of thing that just gets someone hooked as well, because if someone goes out on their own a couple of times and just spends a lot of time, money, and energy and just fails, it's tough. And then for that person to come back again to get kicked in the
teeth.
The teeth.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I saw you struggling there.
Again and again. It's like how many times does a guy come back for that? So absolutely, that's a good point. So Jason Phelps, you're going to have the last word here, man.
Oh boy, that's a lot of pressure.
New hunter. What do you tell him?
So I'm going to piggyback a little bit on them is, find opportunity, and the engineer in me says plan. And I'll say, and then expectations kind of on top of that, which there are states, Oregon, Idaho, Colorado, you can hunt every year. There are states like Wyoming, Montana, where you can get in there every 2 or 3 years. So start laying out a plan. That way, when you finally do get to a point where you're going to draw tags, or if you set out, hey, I want to draw a good tag in Utah or Wyoming, you do not want to go in on your very first bull that's ever been called into you with Ryan and have a giant in front of you, because you're going to fail. You're going to screw up. You're not going to know when to draw. You're never going to have your heart rate at that point. So set realistic expectations, but then plan for that. You see guys, all over the industry killing these giants, which we all love to do. And I think we would all lie if we were saying we don't go out. We all go out and try to kill the biggest bull on the mountain if possible. I would say as a new hunter, try your best to get rid of that mentality. Go out and shoot a cow. Go out and shoot a raghorn and learn from that. And then, all right, maybe you got 2 or 3 successful years under you. Hey, maybe in that 3rd or 4th year, if you're in Montana or you're back in Idaho and you've got you can start to maybe pass on some bulls. And then as your plan starts to develop and say, all right, I wanted to draw a tag in Wyoming at 10 points, you have these other over-the-counter opportunities under your belt, you're going to be better prepared to do that tags, some justice, and be ready for that. So don't set your expectations way up here to start. And just like they've touched on mentoring, I kind of got the super start. My dads and uncles, all loggers. I grew up in a hunting family. I had some great mentors. So, the learning curve is cut way down. But if you're the brand new hunter and you don't have anybody to train, just set your expectations. So go out there, have a great time, try to fill your freezer, and then slowly work your way up on your standards versus going out there, with 380 expectations right off the bat.
Yeah, I agree. This year I was able to hunt for a couple weeks early in September, and we went into a little restaurant and we ran into like 20 guys at this little tiny like diner that were hunting for elk, and almost every single one of them was from the East Coast.
Yeah.
And they had just packed up with 4 or 5 buddies, and they just went and bought an over-the-counter tag, and they were out giving it a go. And almost every single one of them got into elk or called elk in. No idea what they're doing, never hunted out west, never hunted elk. They just did it. They just got together, went out, and did it. And my advice is just go out and do it. Like little Nike here, just do it,
Or just
do it.
DM Brian and ask him what that cafe was and what you did was in.
That's right.
I decided I'm not going back to that cafe ever again. There's a lot of hunters, man. But we get hated on quite a bit. I know Corey does by encouraging people to do that.
And it's a valid point. We grew up, my dad was a logger. It was hush hush. Don't tell anybody where we're hunting. Don't teach anybody how to hunt. They're going to steal our success. And I've come to realize that somebody else having success or being successful enhances my success. It doesn't take from it. They're not shooting the elk that I'm going to shoot that year. And what it does is it creates a whole following group, passionate elk hunters who are going to keep this sport and our heritage alive and help us with conservation and other efforts that we're drastically undermanned with.
Yeah. On that NPR piece, they said there was something like a decline in hunters by 2 million hunters total in tag sales since 1996 to now. We have a trend of a declining number of hunters. I think it's mostly baby boomers dying off, but still you have this downward trend. What I find ironic is I think we have more animals than we've ever had and fewer hunters than we've ever had, and yet we're complaining.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're in the heyday. We need to share what we know and what we do more.
Yeah.
And the more hunters we have on our team, the more we win.
I got a little point on that. So I post a lot of my pictures on Instagram, social media.
Yeah.
Big bulls, right? Like,
quit showing people those bulls.
People get mad. Like, what are you doing showing that bull off? Dude, I don't get those bulls killed out from under me very often.
Yep.
Very, very rare. I don't stress about it. Like, there's people that know how to kill, and there's people learning how to kill.
Yeah.
Like, I say take them in. Show them. Do the best you can because they're not going to be on your level.
It's hard.
It's hard.
Yep.
It's so hard. So teach them.
It's
I'm
so
telling you.
hard. Corey didn't kill an elk this year. Not to rub it in, but
Wow.
is it the first year in 20?
I'm pretty sure we just ran out of time, didn't we?
Is it 20-something years?
It's taken me 4 months to get to this point where I can actually sit here and be okay in this group, and now you bring that up.
That's why he wasn't coming to the show. He wasn't really saying,
Yeah, I hope we got through the success talk. Yeah, no, I did not fill an elk tag this year. And success rates are, 10%, 10, 12%, somewhere in there. And it hasn't changed for years. And it's not going to. Technology's not going to change it. The reason why, only 10 or 12% of the population has enough ambition to be successful. And no matter how much we share with information, it's not going to make people more successful who don't have the ambition. It's going to take work.
Yeah.
And it's not going to change success rates.
Yeah, I didn't kill one during archery this year, so I had to go get an over-the-counter rifle tag and kill an elk. So I did kill one last year.
You did.
Yeah.
And you looked directly at me and pointed at me when you said that.
Hey, I'm losing on every other front. I got to throw something out there.
I called an elk in for you.
You did. And then I blew it. Thanks for reminding me. All right, guys.
I think that's why he wanted you up here. He wanted to make that.
He did.
Well, he just stuck me right back. I mean,
I know.
Thanks for coming on the podcast. Corey, where can people find you?
Right now I'm on the Mountain Ops stage with a group of elk killers.
Elk101.com.
Oh, you mean in general?
Yeah, and Instagram at
Elk101 or CoreyJacobsen.elk101.
Ryan?
Mostly social media platforms. Ryan DC Outfitters on all of
Instagram,
them.
One Trick Pony. DC Outfitters.
Right. You'll find it. Just type it.
Ryan Lampers?
So Hunt Harvest Health is probably the best, or Stay Healthy Hunter.
And that's huntharvesthealth.com.
Yep.
On you got a webpage, recipes,
Yep. A lot of food stuff on there.
testosterone boosting,
A lot of health advice from my
stuff.
wife. Yes.
And then Instagram is Sta Healthy Hunter,
Sta
ST Healthy
Sta Healthy.
Hunter, and also Hunt Harvest Health.
Correct.
And Jason Phelps.
Instagram at Phelps Game Calls, all the Facebook Phelps Game Calls, personal Jason Phelps, and
Angry Mountain Productions, and you just came out with a bunch of YouTube videos.
yeah, a little series, a little mini series. So
And
it's
that's
rolling.
called
Traditions.
Yep. And they can find that on your YouTube.
Yep, Angry Mountain Productions YouTube page.
And Corey, you have Destination Elk on
Yep.
Elk 101 YouTube,
On YouTube. Yep.
where I miss.
Yeah, they get to watch you. Yeah. So check it out and watch Brian.
Miss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
It happens.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thanks
Stay
for having
gritty,
us.
folks.
All right,
Thanks,
stay
Brad.
ready.